Hello, Canada. Welcome back to another edition of the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, Alias the Guy. Well, we got a whole pile of crap going on here, people. Carney's making billions of dollars. We're going to kind of show you his stocks on Brookfield. And, of course, give you another real-time event of pretty much exactly what was going down behind the scenes in the stock market, telling us pretty much where Canada's going and how, well, Carney's selling us out, and this is clear as day. Trump just signed a huge deal with Japan. We're not talking little, we're talking huge deal. And we're going to kind of go into that as well. Now, as normal, I'm going to try and weave all of this together. Canada sold its soul a long time ago. Well, they've allowed their politicians to sell our soul a long time ago. And there's a book that's come out, and that was some great reporting by the one, the only, the great Sam Cooper, is exposing just how seriously infiltrated Canada is by the CCP. Trump knows this. Trump is at war against not only the socialist ideology, not only the communistic ideology, not only the fascist ideology, but the ties that bind all three of these perspectives, these insane political ideologies together in the new world we live in today, which is the green agenda. Now, China has done wonders brainwashing the world while they pollute, well, another coal-fired power plant every 5 to 7 days. And through back doors, NGOs and all the rest of their lies, deceit, and control, using the greediest people on the planet like Carney and other CEOs and wannabe elitists like that, who will sell their mother's soul to have power and wealth. Trump knows what's going on. There's a lot of countries that see this. And one of the countries that has been fighting against China with really good reason, and we're going to get into that, is Japan. Japan, after World War II, realized what they had almost done and how they allowed these psychotic elites to convince the people into genocidal ideologies. They learnt their lesson the hard way. And every day since, hold deep in their heart a thank you to all of those who beat back Japan and the Germans and the other nutbars out there. This is a great compliment to the Japanese people. It brought them back to their true belief system that was tore away from them from outside influences in the early 1800s. So there's a large portion of Japanese who are, well, they hold it in their hearts. They hold a big thank you to not just the United States, Canadians as well, Brits. But slowly all of these have been kind of dissolving in other countries because they've been watching their nemesis, their greatest enemy since World War II, which is China. after Mao and the complete takeover of communistic power within China, and China wanting to control every single thing they can get their hands on, Japan has been in the forefront, right across a small body of water. Not forgetting their history, but using it to reinvigorate who they are and stand up for the freedoms that they have. Through this, some great politicians through time have really gained good friendships with Japan. And this kind of also happened in South Korea, and it's sad to say, after the fall of Hong Kong, because of a deal signed, we watched what happened to Hong Kong. Hong Kong, once the deal was over, time was up, and the Western world had to abandon them to the communist China dictatorship. We watched thousands upon thousands of people disappear. We watched news agencies get completely obliterated, censored, and wiped off the face of the map. Millionaires disappear. Good, honest, democratic, loving politicians and people disappear. A lot of teachers disappeared. Now, there was a lot of Japanese who were part of that whole Hong Kong. Because of where they are, they were a huge trading partner, and once that was forfeit, and China pretty much destroyed it, Japan was running out of there. Now, here we are today. So where are you going with this, Alias? Well, here's where I'm going with this. Canada sold its soul generations ago. Now, if you're a new subscriber or new viewer, I urge you to check out my previous episodes, especially the ones on, Trudeau Sr.'s links to not just China, but the Khalistani movement and all of the extremist organizations that the socialists use in order to spread, and I know my fans and subscribers know it, fear, hate, and division. And then with that, you can sprinkle in chaos, and this is how you win elections and take power. And then you control the strongest arm of this type of ideology, which is propaganda. Now we roll ahead. So we know Carney lied through his teeth. He blatantly lied, as usual, like an old rug. The guy is... This man has no morals. So I can proudly say he's not a Canadian. He moved out of Canada. I'm glad. It's sad he came back. The saddest part is that because of propaganda, he has kind of won his way back into the hearts and minds of a lot of people who have no idea of what's really going on. They don't get the truth. Sorry, they don't get the facts, because we now live in an age, thanks to the turd, Governor Turd, where all of Canadians' legacy media is bought and paid propaganda. And they're coming after us. And they've been trying with different bills. And again, previous episodes. I'm just going to play a little wee bit here that just exposes everything of what Carney is. And I've been trying to find the clip in its entirety so I can go through it. I spent hours and I can't find it. So I'm going to have to use another propaganda outlet. I'm not going to play the whole thing because they do what they normally do. They kind of say the truth but hide the facts and deviate from it to kind of pamper their master. But let's just dive in just to expose the truth.
CTV's Colton Prale is standing by with the latest here. And we are getting reaction to the fact that Doug Ford earlier today, Colton, as you know, said, hey, guess what? This was the best ad that I've ever taken out, seen by tens of millions of people in North America and around the world during the World Series. And the only reason why President Trump is upset is because the truth hurts.
That's exactly what he said, and that is not how the Americans are framing this at all. What we heard this morning from Mark Carney was that there were some very specific, detailed conversations ongoing prior to this ad, and he hinted that a deal was close, that it was coming up until the point that this advertisement ran. About 30 minutes, maybe an hour ago at this point now, Pete Hoekstra, the U.S. ambassador, spoke, and he offered some of the most revealing public commentary, a look behind the curtains on where things actually were from the American side. And he said basically the same thing, that that deal was very close, that it was potentially coming by American Thanksgiving, so that'd be the end of November, and that it would include sectoral relief for steel, aluminum, and energy. And included in energy, he had oil and gas and uranium. Have a listen to Ambassador Hoekstra on where the conversation was prior to the Ontario government's ad.
And the answer was, oh yeah, absolutely. You know, we've ironed out most of the major issues, most of the major hurdles. You know, we maybe have a little bit of work to do on, you know, getting to an agreement or an acceptance of all of the numbers that are out there. But yeah, there are no significant hurdles out there. We have stopped negotiations with Canada. Okay, I don't see any way that there will be an agreement before Thanksgiving. I'm not sure what it's going to take to get people back to the table in a constructive and positive mood.
And that's where we are now as a result of that advertisement. And the Thanksgiving date, the American Thanksgiving date.
Do you see how he twisted it? That's not what Hoekstra was saying. What he was saying is that the Americans had a deal on the table. And of course, it excluded the things that, well, it was a deal for Carney people. If you look at all of Carney's investments, previous episodes, you'll see that he excluded the things that he doesn't make money off of, because he's still trying to secure and get all of his investors' talons and beaks picking the flesh off of Canadians for profit. So Otto was out of it because they need to control it. This is where the electric EV mandate comes in. And don't worry, the auto sector was dead a long time ago because of this. This was a takeover. This was a complete fascist takeover without anybody actually saying the truth except for people like myself and other independents. And again, previous episodes, I showed the CEOs. All of the big three were already saying, well, hard for us to kind of agree to something where we're going to cut our own kneecaps off. It wasn't in their best interest to stay in Canada if they planned on banning combustion engines. And they knew the technology wasn't there for them to go completely electric. Then we find out through the Biden administration and a lot of these documents that are now being exposed, thanks to a new administration down there, that this is all linked to the global cabal. These were the people running the auto pen. Yes, which guess what? Last night, it was voted all of the auto pen signatures have been disqualified. They're moving south, trying to free the citizens and the country from a totalitarian ideology, from being owned by the elite. In the meantime, thanks to our propaganda like Colton Prail and CTV, they are lying and twisting what's actually going on. This was a deal where it looked as though by eliminating certain things, pretty much ensuring Carney could make piles of money, that they might have actually been getting somewhere. But, as I did in yesterday's episode, I showed you it wasn't close, like CTV's trying to tell you. And Hoekstra worded it quite nicely. In other words, they had a deal on the table, matching kind of where Canada was going, but it wasn't. It wasn't nearing finished, and they were hoping that maybe sometime by Thanksgiving they would come to some type of a decision to make a partial deal. Small deal. So in other words, there would still be tariffs. There would still be a lot of the, well, what we're seeing right now. Why? Because everybody down in the States is saying it. And again, yesterday's episode, they're dealing with the same turd government liberals. It's all the same. Nothing's changed except for the man. The evil behind the curtain who has been pulling the strings is now running the party. Nothing's changed. And in the meantime, Canada is completely oblivious. As they're being brainwashed one way, they're slowly pacifying people into thinking that, oh, well, we should align with China. This is exactly contrary to what the United States is trying to achieve. They are hoping, and now Mexico is on board, to shut down this communist takeover of the world. They want to remove the greenback. That is the American dollar. This is where BRICS comes in. This is where you start to see all of the backdoor trading. This is why Biden, ran by his puppet masters, the global elite, the WEF, and most of the United Nations, were pushing for war and were trying to tank the United States. Now, where are we today? Well, I'll show you where Carney is today, and we're going to kind of go over some dates and kind of prove he doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about you, people. This is Brookfield's stocks. Yes. And again, previous episodes, and I will go and dabble all of this. This is the election. This is where Carney wins. Back here's the heat pump scandal. I'm not going to go that far back. I'm going to deal with today. Every time he secures and pushes forth on something that was already being worked on by the Liberal government, it's not new projects, people. There's no new projects. He hasn't done anything. He's still pushing ahead with this disastrous 10-year policy to steal from Canada to fill their pockets and bank accounts. So every time one of his investments gets the go-ahead, you see a huge bump. Every time when he says, oh, guess what? I have now made an office, and this office is going to push forward natural interest projects, you see a bump in his stocks. And what happens when the trade talks work in his favor? His wealth increases. Here we are, and you can see it clear as day. It's right in front of you. Look at his stocks. They are skyrocketing. That's funny. When did this deal go south? Oh, and who makes money when there's no trade deal? Brookfield does. Brookfield does. And if Brookfield makes money, Carney is making money. We can narrow this down even more, and you can see it clear as day. Here's Trump. Boom! You can see it. This is where it all went down. Carney doesn't care about you. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Liberals need to see this. This is your tax dollars. While our dollar plummets, while more and more people, record numbers hit the food bank, are committing suicide, are homeless, everything is just chaos on the streets, These people are profiting off of you. In the meantime, you've got another schmuck who has been infiltrated by the CCP, as well as the organizations that they are using in order to shut Canada down. This is the Sierra Club and all the rest of these NGOs. These are the people who put the NDP and Liberals in power over the course of the last 18 years in BC. And they're the major contributor of who? None other than Eby himself. He wants Canada to do bad. He wants to lock us in. He wants to tear apart the fabric of what Canada is. Thus the whole pushing to give away your land to the Indigenous. Fear, hate, and division. And you throw in chaos, and this is what you get.
The war of words over new U.S. tariffs is heating up, but BC's premier says our province won't be backing down and still plans to take its message straight to Americans. Reagan Hasegawa joins us now with details. Reagan, this is a pretty bold move from the province.
It is. Good morning, Carrie. Premier David Eby says British Columbia is moving ahead with an ad campaign aimed at U.S. audiences, even after Washington slapped another 10% tariff on Canadian goods. The tensions began after Ontario released an anti-tariff ad in the U.S. featuring a clip of former U.S. President Ronald Reagan defending free trade. Eby says BC's ads are meant to show how both economies rely on each other and that tariffs could actually end up hurting American businesses and consumers too. The campaign will run on U.S. television and social media, targeting border states where trade ties are strongest. It comes as industry leaders warn new tariffs are unfortunate and unnecessary. The U.S. ambassador to Canada admits there's little chance of a deal before Thanksgiving.
Russia that launched a war of aggression against Ukraine, the whole world sanctioning them, delivering arms to Ukraine, support to Ukraine to fight the first war in Europe in a generation, and they are able to sell their softwood to the Americans at a lower tariff rate than Canadians are. This kind of nonsense and absurdity needs to be brought to the attention of the American people.
Eby says BC won't stay silent while local jobs are on the line, calling the ads a chance to speak directly to Americans about what's really at stake.
Well, what's at stake is Canada. These people are trying to get us aligned with the real enemy. I've said this since I was young. Most people I know who understand geopolitics, who really understand the sacrifices needed in order to keep our freedom, understood this and watched us slowly sell our soul to China. And yes, in the beginnings, we can do good because, well, look, they're buying our products. But they've always used them against us in order to take more and more and more. Now, I'm going to play a little clip. Listen carefully to what Sam Cooper has to say.
Cooper, Mr. Barrett, go ahead, please.
Your reporting notes that Brookfield maintained over $3 billion in politically sensitive investments connected to China and its state-linked real estate and energy companies. Can you explain how Prime Minister Carney's role in Brookfield's ties to the regime in China?
Now, by the way, I use this clip. This is Rebel News. If for my subscribers may have noticed, I started actually hunting down and downloading a lot of the committees, and I'm going to put them through in their full so that you have access to actually see all of these committees without being edited, because the left and a few on the right will purposely manipulate a lot of what you see. I'm here to give you the truth. So sorry, just the facts. That way, everybody has the ability to see all of this in its entirety and make their own educated decisions on what they're seeing. I am not right wing. I am not left wing. I just want the truth, just the facts. And I want everybody to have the ability to have a dialogue, freedom of speech, freedom of information, and the right to do so without censorship. So I will have all of these. It's going to take a long time of recording in order to get them all up and posted, but I do it again for your information. And as always, I post everything in the description below.
Sure, I'll go off memory of my own reporting. Thinking of that story, which I wrote in the lead up to the federal election, I researched into Brookfield's investments in China. And on the real estate file, I noted that after 2015, Brookfield had made very substantial China-based real estate investments. And due to my knowledge of Beijing's United Front networks, I noted that one of the key Hong Kong investors connected to the projects in which Brookfield was investing was part of China's political consultative conference. That was important to me because the Central Intelligence Agency notes that people on that high-level Chinese communist entity are involved, the CIA says, in Beijing's sort of global United Front networks. That's how the Chinese Communist Party brings influential people together. So I noted in my reporting that for Brookfield to get access to that same type of investment project on a major real estate deal in China, together with a very elite Hong Kong real estate tycoon, certainly in my learned opinion, it would take a special kind of access to get that kind of deal. So then tracking forward through when Prime Minister Carney joins Brookfield, in the surrounding years, I noted that the real estate market in China had plummeted. At some point, Brookfield needed to secure some, let's call it sort of a re-injection of capital, and it turned out that it emerged that the Bank of China, as others have reported, was involved in bridging some capital to reinfuse that deal in China's troubled real estate market. So stepping back from that, I noted that people in Mr. Carney's position in Brookfield's, Mr. Carney also traveling to China to meet with senior Communist Party officials around the timing of the Bank of China, assisting Brookfield with their real estate investment. That would certainly, in my mind, raise, the questions around access and influence.
Mr. Carney was the chair at Brookfield during that time. Then he enters public office. You talk about his ties, relationships with the regime in China. Is there any evidence to suggest that those ties have been maintained since he's entered elected office?
Well, in my research focusing on Brookfield, which is the nature already in previous testimony, I heard Brookfield and Mr. Carney's 103 potential investment vulnerabilities come up. Look, my work is based on open source investigations, and Mr. Carney, I noted in the timeline back to his days with the Bank of England, had worked on establishing a special relationship between the Bank of England and the Bank of China. and which is, of course, controlled by the Chinese Communist Party in terms of global monetary systems. So I felt that was important as a researcher. Through the years, Mr. Carney, when he joins Brookfield, prior to entering politics, repeatedly travels to Beijing and meets with senior officials, including President Xi Jinping. And I noted that for business persons at that time of Mr. Carney's stature to appear with Xi Jinping, again, as China's economy is in need of foreign investment, and while investments into China are becoming more dangerous in the view of some Western capitalists, having Mr. Carney be in those meetings, I do think is important. And you could say fairly is beneficial to Xi Jinping, as it would be beneficial to Mark Carney, the business person, in his time at Brookfield. So when we enter Mr. Carney's race to become the Liberal nominee for prime minister, I did note that as the Globe and Mail broke the story that Mr. Carney met with an entity called the Jiangsu Chamber of Commerce in Toronto, I was very aware already that that Commerce Department had overt ties to the United Front Work Department, and indeed politically connected Canadians are honorary chairs with that entity. So I do think there's much reporting that hasn't come out on exactly what the Jiangsu Chamber of Commerce is and what Mr. Carney's meeting, which he denied at first, as you know, he denied elements of the Globe and Mail's reporting. So there's controversy around what really happened in that meeting.
Unfortunately, I'm out of time. I appreciate
This all goes to a lot of the trade deal that's kind of going down. There's a huge war going on against China. Carney is part of this, as I've said earlier in the video. They sold their soul to sell a lie that has been perpetuated on the people for a long time. It's infiltrated our schools. They just keep repeating it over and over and over to where people believe it, even though all of the science is pointing out to the reality that it's not true. It's not true. Again, previous episodes. China is a major problem. And there was a book that has been released. And I'm going to be doing another episode based on this book because it exposes what I already know. And I just keep looking for more and more proof in order to put the puzzle together, because our government has been hiding so much of the information. And this has to deal with the Wuhan flu. Yes, Canada was a large player in putting out and in doing what they did to the world. You can blame China. Definitely blame China, because they were the lead role in having this Wuhan flu get out. But where did they get all of the components needed? And who were the people that were on board that were actually designing it? Well, they were working at the Winnipeg labs. They were caught stealing different things from the lab that should never have left our country. In fact, those people should never have been allowed to even be working in our top secret classified labs. Trudeau hid this. There has been documents that came out. Now, Keane Bext is one of them, who he actually had a document, and the government sent the police to their door and pretty much threatened, like a communist country, that they were going to wrap him up and throw him in jail and lock away the key without even having to go to court, because they were going to use the national security on some paperwork that he had. That if you're out there, Keane, and you're listening, I would love to have that document. Not that I could actually say it out loud, but the little bits that I have from that document that I know of, I didn't get the whole document. I got little bits and pieces of it saved within the terabytes of information that I have that helped me to, put all of these puzzle pieces together for all of the different stories that I do, would sure be a big help. how we know that Canada knew and brought back people, our military who were infected, they brought them back knowing they were infected people. They did this. Yes. This conspiracy isn't a conspiracy. This is the truth. Well, this book that came out exposes that. And I'm going to be doing a show on that shortly. I got a whole pile that I have to go through in order to build. I try to be able to weave everything all in so I can kind of give you a 1-hour show where you can kind of watch it, have all the information at your fingertips, and actually be aware of the truth, of the facts. This author also, in his book, wrote a lot that pertains to what's going on today, exposing that China, as I've already known and I've exposed months and months ago, previous episodes, infiltrated our government, and they got very serious with Pierre Elliott Trudeau. And again, I urge you, scroll back and check out those previous episodes. I always put the links and all the documents are there so that you have all of this information at your fingertips. Now, I'm going to read some of this. Now, this is, of course, the one and only Sam Cooper who actually put this out. This came out yesterday. I'm going to read you his little article here. And think carefully as I'm reading it about how Carney is even more invested than these leaders were. In a groundbreaking new book, former Canadian intelligence analyst and historian Dennis Milanero argues that nearly 1,000 pages of newly declassified RCMP Security Service files indicate Pierre Elliott Trudeau was the first Canadian Prime Minister ever targeted by a successful Chinese Communist Party influence operation. One of those reverberations shaped the central geopolitical crisis of our time, Beijing's threat to invade Taiwan. The clandestine operations architect, Milanero writes, was a young Canadian scholar, Paul Tu Kiang Lin, a University of British Columbia student who became a trusted asset of Premier Zhou Enlai, Mao Zedong's urbane diplomat spy master. In Quebec, Paul Lin would later found the Canada-China Business Council, a bridge between Beijing and Ottawa that, as Milanero traces, intersected with the Des Marius family's empire in Montreal. Now, for those of you who are new to the channel, this is part of the Laurentian elite. This family is kind of the main perpetrators, owners, and pushers of Power Corp. Very evil company, people. Laurentian elite. Whereas journalist Peter C. Newman once reported, plans for Pierre Trudeau's candidacy were launched in 1968 in the offices of the Power Corporation. That nexus of Power Corporation and the Canada-China Business Council has deep relationships with no fewer than 4 prime ministers. Molinaro writes, Liberals Trudeau Sr., John Chrétien, and Paul Martin, as well as the Conservative, yes, Brian Mulroney, which again, previous episodes, people, I already knew all this. I expose it. I even give you links to all of the hidden papers. The Panama Papers, Palisade Papers, Paradise Papers. These people have been laundering money gifted to them through these, outside influencers. And most of the time they do it through corporations. So they end up, after you do your time, you get to go sit on the board and be a CEO and make record profits while they funnel you your payments for doing your due diligence and being a good party member. Evil begets evil, people. On Beijing's covert influence over Pierre Trudeau, Under Assault, which is the name of the book, conclusion is both incisive and sweeping. Trudeau's 1970 decision to recognize the People's Republic of China appears to have been the CCP's first major foreign interference success in the West, a political operation achieved through personal cultivation, covert access, and the strategic seduction of a leader predisposed to admire China. While Molinari's book is a work of history, it also serves as a guidebook to the predominant geopolitical forces that will shape the next decade, and to the evolving superpower contest between democratic Washington and autocratic Beijing. Citing Chen Weng-shou, the former PRC ambassador to New Zealand, Molinaro writes that when Premier Zhou Enlai told Mao that Canada had agreed to recognize the PRC, Mao laughed and stated, "Now we have a friend in America's backyard." Chen later clarified what Mao meant. Canada was America's ally. The establishment of diplomatic relations with Canada broke a hole in the backyard of America and created a Canadian formula that other nations could follow to recognize China while bypassing Taiwan. Molinaro's research and Paul Lin's targeting of Pierre Trudeau is explosive, drawing on RCMP documents that explicitly warned Lin was sent by the Chinese Communist Party's highest authorities to serve as an agent of influence in Canada, and, evidently, a talent spotter of elites and businesses, politics, and academia who could advance Beijing's plan to pull Ottawa away from Washington. We are watching this in real time. Carney is the queen on this chessboard. He has been completely infiltrated. And trust me, we're already seeing it. He sold his soul. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about anybody other than his own wealth and power. The picture he develops with the precision of a historian and an intuitive reasoning of an intelligence analyst amounts to an early blueprint for the CCP's modern United Front playbook, a system of friends and proxies cultivated to advance Beijing's interests, which, Molinaro argues, finds a striking echo decades later in Justin Trudeau's campaign for Prime Minister, when a 2015 fundraiser placed the younger Trudeau among numerous known Chinese operatives. Again, previous episodes. Newly declassified RCMP documents, Molinaro digs up a number of explosive scoops that will advance international understanding of the Chinese Communist Party's clandestine ways and means, with specific implications on Ottawa's lack of diligence and countering Beijing's interference since the 1990s, according to the author. One of these nuggets finds that Chinese intelligence fusion with triad narcotics and human trafficking syndicates, long documented in jurisdictions such as Hong Kong and Taiwan, was also recognized in a stunning case involving the PRC consulate in Toronto. According to the RCMP and Toronto Police Intelligence Report cited in Under Assault, a consular official identified as Xu Sheng assisted a Chinese human trafficking network in providing false Canadian passports to PRC nationals seeking to move in and out of the country undetected. Within the first two chapters, Molinaro also cites testimony from defected Chinese diplomat Chen Yonggun, who revealed that classified Chinese documents identified two Canadian leaders as old friends of Beijing. In one of the book's most stunning assertions, Molinaro notes that those names were Pierre Trudeau and Jean Chrétien. Yes, Jean Chrétien. A friend of China is trusted, a business partner, for example, but an old friend is even more than that, Molinaro explains. Old friends have a close and lasting connection to the PRC, not to the people of China, but to the CCP. Chen told me he recalled reading a file on North American and Oceanic affairs while he was still working with the Foreign Ministry. Within that file, he noted that among the many old friends of China, such as a former U.S. Secretary of State, were two prominent Canadians. One was Pierre Trudeau. Paul Lin was tasked with conducting foreign interference in Canada. Now he goes, and again, this is a bombshell. This is the truth of what's going on. A lot of the media won't talk about this, because if they do, they expose themselves that they have been hiding this. It's the media's job to get this information out to the voters, so the voters can then grab their pitchforks, march all the way to Parliament, and honk their horns. Hink, wink. These are the things that, as an entire people, we need to be able to come together and agree that, wait a minute, this isn't what we want, and to oust the governments and hold them accountable. Thanks to the propaganda and now the total control the PRC has on Canada because, well, they own the Liberal Party. Do you think they're going to talk about this on mainstream? No, they're not going to. While Molinaro refrains from calling Trudeau a useful idiot, his selection of particular texts from Trudeau's book, an example of romanticism, Orientalism, and ignorance of the millions of deaths that would follow Trudeau's blinkered tour, makes the argument sufficiently. And here we are. We're going to realign ourselves with a country with the longest undefended border because of how closely linked our morals are to one another and our beliefs in freedom. We're going to sacrifice that and try to trade more with China? Who benefits from this? Not you. This is just securing more losses of all of your rights and freedoms. This is what Carney wants. He wants total control. It's like the deal with the devil. If you allow the devil the power to crush the United States, we're going to give you Canada, and we're going to give you all of these different little countries. We're going to give you the power to control certain areas to profit off while we slowly infiltrate and take over. But oh, don't worry. You'll be the powerhead as long as you bow to China. Now, the Liberal card holders, they don't care. They don't give a rat's ass about any new information. They don't care. We've seen this happen in Germany. We've seen this happen in all different types of dictatorships and communist countries and socialist ideologies throughout the years. These are people who have serious mental issues. They don't care. They don't think. They are brainwashed and they don't know better. They're the hardest people to ever try to educate. The second you say it, they go, "Oh, you're going to re-educate me. See, you're the animal." And all you want to do is show them the truth. You just want to show them information. But we're dealing with another large part of our population who, if they were shown this information, if they had the access to these documents, if they had the ability to actually see what was going on, they wouldn't vote Liberal. They would realize the Liberal Party has been completely taken over. All the real Liberals, the educated Liberals, the smart Liberals, fled the party 12 years ago. It's only the ones who are greedy, just don't care, and are out for power that remain within that caucus. That includes all of the new ones that ran, trying to transform this party and call it a new Liberal Party. Yeah, if it's so new, why are all of Trump's administration coming out saying this deal was done in the water a long time ago? Nothing's happening. Because we're dealing with the same Governor Turd government that's been in power for the last 10 years. Nothing's changed. Now there's good news though. I'm going to let Michael tell you.
Hey folks, so our conservative motion in the House just passed. This is ordering Prime Minister Mark Carney's Chief of Staff and the head of his department, the Clerk of the Privy Council, as well as the CEO of Brookfield and the President of Brookfield to come before the Standing Committee on Access to Information, Privacy and Ethics as we try to unwind the mess that we see created through Mark Carney's conflicts of interest, with investments in tax havens and blind trusts and more than 100 potential conflicts. Canadians need to be able to have confidence that a Prime Minister is acting in the public interest, not their own personal interests. So we want to get answers from these witnesses. The House has just ordered this, and we are going to make sure that we get the information we need to make changes to this act, including having real penalties for breaches of the act, because that's what you expect and that's what you deserve.
Now, this is a good thing. This needs to come to light because mainstream is hiding this from you. And this is what mainstream does. And I had a great conversation here earlier. Actually, not necessarily a conversation. It was just a share of amongst texts. And of course, there was some footage. And you know what? I'm going to show you the footage. Now, this is Kelowna. Now, the national news cause you got to remember now, with the digital age, a lot less people are actually paying attention to local news. They're kind of the first ones that are dying off thanks to social media. So you get a lot of bits and clips and a lot of edited. And as I always say, it's sound bites and video clips. So for the most part, the national kind of claim is always, when there's mass fires, it's climate change. It's climate change. It's all climate change. And you're getting this pumped down your throat. So this video came out, and again, thank you to Castanet. These guys are great. I follow these guys. They're wicked. They're kind of on scene. They're always kind of getting some really cool stuff based out of BC. Fabulous, just fabulous. They posted this. I got friends and actually family that live out in this area. So I shared the video because I just wanted them to see. Now, of the 5 people that I know that live in the area, only one of them replied that they actually saw this on the news. And of course, they put local news. So I was like, hey, okay, cool. So at least the local news is playing this. Now, within that group, of course, one throws it out there because I put, this is what mainstream doesn't like showing. And then, of course, you get, and they share the local news program. Like all of Canada watches everybody's local news? No. This is how propaganda works, okay? So as a whole, this is what they push. They push, it's all climate change, it's all climate change. Instead, considering that national news has talked about this fire and the last few fires that have been happening, especially within the Kelowna area, they've been just devastated this year. It's just been horrible. Well, what they're not telling you that is that like 90% of these fires have been proven to be caused by humans. And no, not caused by human climate change, caused by humans. They did have a bad part of the season. Yes, they did. About 2 months ago, they had some wicked storms that went through there. There was a lot of lightning, and it did light a lot of fires. So I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to say, it's all humans. It's not. Nature did have something to do with it. They had a dry part. Lightning went through there. But for the majority of all of these fires, like the mass amount of these fires, they're human caused. But mainstream won't tell you. So you get people who have been propagandized, who right away, instead, the second you say that mainstream isn't telling you the truth, and you're trying to share it with those people, they jump out there and they hunt and find the local news that, 99.9% of Canada doesn't watch because they don't live in Kelowna and watch Kelowna news. Let alone the fact that, like I said, of the 5 people that I sent this to, only one of them said they actually watched it on the local news. So they watch local news. The other 4, they didn't see this footage because they don't watch local news. They don't trust news pretty much as it is, period. So they thanked me for sending this. And then I told them, I said, your local news did have it on there. And they of course, were laughing. Well, we'll have to look that up and see how they twisted this. So I don't know. I'm not going to pay attention to their local news. It's not my job. My job is to show you the reality of what national news should be showing you. This is great footage. Here it is. So this is Knox Mountain. And lo and behold, who's that running? A person who has been lighting fires. The best part is from what I found out from one of the people who got back to me, because they've been researching this, I got this a few hours ago, earlier this morning, was telling me that they've been looking for this person because they know they already had this person kind of under surveillance, but they needed to catch him in the act because they really didn't have any 100% proof. And with the jail no bail, you really got to have your P's and Q's, and you got to make sure you have 100% evidence because, they go free anyways. So here we go. The search is, they're on him. They're chasing this guy down. Now, person could have very much compressed this footage. It is only 1 minute and 53 seconds long. Instead, we are getting 20-minute news cycles of what is going on down in another country with a hurricane. Now, yes, my heart goes out, there's a hurricane going on. But what are they saying? Well, they're saying this is climate change, an increase in hurricanes. This is what we're getting. They're pushing a narrative. It's all bullshit. It's all lies. In fact, hurricanes are on the decline. So again, science, but this is China, people. This is, and a lot of people aren't aware, because yes, it goes into the WEF, it goes into, but China is the core main founder of pushing all of this ideology that you're seeing. Down he goes. Thank you very much, Castanet. Great footage. So this is kind of what I'm getting at. So now here we are. Instead of telling you the news, instead of telling you the truth of what's going on with Carney, the climate hoax, all of the bullshit, the fact that Brookfield started like making huge gains in their stocks the moment Trump stopped talks with Canada, and showing that Carney is invested in Brookfield, they're going to sidestep. Are you ready? Are you ready? Get the ball. And they're going to throw it over where? Back to the agenda of what Trump and his administration are trying to fight. You have been brainwashed. Propaganda is brainwashing you. So let's get to the incredible part. So this whole climate change, this is what's going to happen if we don't get serious against China and all of these global elitists and Laurentian elitists that are selling your souls for their own profit. This came out yesterday.
Well, the Pacific Northwest could soon face a power shortage. A report warns about the possibility of rolling blackouts next year. Seattle guy Jason Rance joining me now. What's with the blackouts, Jason? Don't tell me it's green policy's gone wrong. Is that right?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the case. Spoiler alert, that's what this is. I mean, Washington State in particular has done everything that it has been able to go away from natural gas and push electricity. And the problem is we don't have the infrastructure in place that could handle any kind of increase, massive increase in demand, especially at a time in which there is some sort of cold snap. We've banned natural gas in new construction. We've closed natural gas and coal plants with no replacement for them. We've been trying to weirdly breach the Snake River dams, which provide hydropower, which is clean and represents about 60% of our electric grid here in Washington State. And so what essentially they're saying is the demand that's going to be put in place because of policies, there is a resource gap in energy, which is basically about the size that would power all of Oregon State. So that's what we're essentially missing moving forward.
Whoa, that's a lot of missing juice, I've got to say.
Yeah.
All right, Jason,
Yeah, a lot of missing juice. Now, where else are we seeing this? Again, Quebec. Oh, no pipelines. Oh, no natural gas. Problem being, as their population increases, they're running out of land that they can hold water back in order to generate electricity. What happens when you can't actually have any more hydropower? You've literally captured all of it, let alone the environments you've destroyed, the workable land that's now underwater, so you can call yourself green. Well, you try to manipulate and steal it from others. This is all part of this whole green scam. When you get people who, used to be CEOs of Hydro One, and now they're part of Carney's government, and then you find out that, yeah, they're invested in Brookfield as well, and right now they're on the Privy Council, and you start to really put all of these pieces together, and then all of a sudden you get a new conservative government that wins out east that now all of a sudden has the political power to make a deal on the dam that wasn't a very good deal for them, and gonna give a whole pile of power to Quebec, because Quebec is running out of power. Yeah. Well, all of a sudden the tables turned again. Where's all the natural resources? Quebec is sitting on a pile of natural gas, while they take the free money from the West and yet hold their own in the ground. Gimme, 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 gimme. No, 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 you're not touching this. And then they brag about their hydro. Well, we're starting to see this in real time, especially now that, 20% growth of population in the last 9 years in Canada. Who's powering all these people? There's not enough energy, let alone green energy. We're behind with the resource energy we have, and we don't have, in anybody's dreamland idea, the amount of hydropower capable for our growing nation. These have become commodities. These have become part of the investments of Brookfield and all of the rest of these green zealots. So they're increasing their profit margins on a bullcrap agenda. And again, this all goes back to China. The actual people who started this, because they're the people who are, using a lot of slaves and other people and paying bad wages, living in a communist society, who have no rights. Like literally, they have no rights. Because they're making all of the green components. This is a huge battlefield that the United States is finally securing their own identity back. They're trying to wake up the world, and they have other countries that are joining them. We were this close. But because of propaganda, we ended up with the same liberal, just totally mentally challenged people in office. No, there's just no science to them. There's no reality. There's no real morality. There's no humanity. There's no Canadianism left in them. They don't care about you. So, where's Carney's deal? If Carney was serious, you would think he would be really focused on aligning with the people who have the moral integrity and, perpetuity, the people who think the same as we do. That's not in his interest. He's out to make money. And where's Trump?
This woman is a winner. So, we've become very close friends all of a sudden because their stock market today and our stock market today hit an all-time high. That means we're doing something right. But the cherished alliance between the United States and Japan is one of the most remarkable relationships in the entire world. And I have such respect for Japan and the country, and now I have a really great respect for the new and incredible Prime Minister.
The president talking with the Prime Minister of Japan there as President Trump addresses our troops overnight on board the USS George Washington at Japan's Yokosuka Naval Base. This on the heels of the meeting with Japan's newly elected Prime Minister, Sanae Takaichi. Both leaders signed framework agreements to secure rare earth mineral supplies through mining and processing. They're exploring a joint stockpiling arrangement to strengthen the security of both supply chains. The two even watched some of the 18-innings-long Game 3 of the World Series together. Joining me now is legal and political strategist and former World Bank and IFC counsel Katie Zechariah. Katie, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. Your reaction, and what about the defense strategy for the U.S. to partner with Japan in this way?
Maria, good morning. It's so nice to see President Trump's new friendship with the Japanese Prime Minister, and also to see, as President Trump, ahead of this meeting with Xi Jinping, as President Trump is building these regional partnerships, regional friendships all over during this trip. This is instrumental for the United States because President Trump has to show China that eventually we will not need to make these deals with them, and we have this autonomy, and this is part of what he's doing with Japan. And so I think it's absolutely brilliant, and to see this new friendship again from Shinzo Abe now to Takaichi is beautiful, Maria.
Yeah, I mean, he's done a deal with Australia, he's done deals with Malaysia, Taiwan, while in Asia, and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick just said we're going to be signing $490 billion of investment. He said these deals are driven by the Japanese Strategic Investment Initiative, which was created by your tariff policy and by your historic trade agreement with Japan. The Commerce Commerce Secretary said to the president. I imagine much of this is aligning his Asian allies around him ahead of this important meeting he's having with Xi Jinping on Thursday.
Exactly what's going on. While Carney's selling us out to China, Trump is going around to all the nations who have been fighting Chinese oppression, who have seen the powerhouse that China has become through their manipulation. People are not aware of what's really going on in these nations. These nations seen and understand this because they live next door to this sociopathic, communistic country. They adore him. This is just some Japanese anime. I'm gonna have to mute the music. Recognize that goofball? And then there's the hero of the story. The Legend of Mega. This is the first trailer. Japan absolutely adores Trump. Why? Because they are right next door to the enemy. The enemy isn't Trump. Japan has been suffering under the exact same green ideology pushed on them through infiltration by China. China right now has paid people in Japan to march on the streets, in which they are now using American and Canadian media to go out and show, oh look, this is Japan. Not everybody's on board with Trump. They won't show you the true adoration that Japan has for Trump. There are thousands upon thousands of these Japanese anime. Here's another great one. We're talking like millions upon millions of views, people. They're winning awards. This one is Shiro. Again, who's the oppressors and who's the hero? It shows who's under the dark masks. It says right there, conspiracy? No. Is the green ideology real? They are seeing what's going on and they're trying to remove themselves from it. They want to get back the freedoms and they want to stop this oppression with the brainwashing that's been going on with this green agenda. They know where it stems from. In the meantime, propaganda, they're not going to show you this. This is a huge deal. Canada is left out again. So while Canada's sitting here being brainwashed by propaganda, suffering, losing jobs, and they're blaming Trump. Trump is like 5%. Trump saw what was going on. It's Canada that allowed themselves to be brainwashed because we absolutely refused to admit our own fault. You have to be able to admit fault in order to learn. Like the old, and I'm going to use Japanese, right? You hold a cup and you fill it. This is your knowledge and it's overfilling. Well, how do you ever learn? And then it burns your hand. Did you really know? Or were you so flooded with false information that you thought you knew until it was too late and you burnt your hand? At one point, you have to stop. You have to absorb what you've learned. You have to be able to actually digest it and understand, was it all true? Was it all good? We're in big trouble. And now you've got Eby. He's going to run these ads. This total schmuck is going to run these ads. This guy and his party, who already decimated the industry, the lumber industry in BC. This has been going on for 20-some years in BC. The Liberals started it. The NDP finished it. But now they have somebody that they can blame it on. Don't be fooled. Don't be fooled. The more we want to align ourselves with the true axis of evil, the harder it's going to be for us. Not only by countries who are fighting against it, but by our own demise. Trump didn't create the Canada chaos that we're in. It started 10 years ago. 10 years ago, people. 5 years ago, we were already had lost $500 billion worth of companies and investment. It's like $1.3 trillion is gone, has fled in the last 10 years. That was before Trump. Trump had nothing to do with that. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Like I said, I'm going to work on one here with the whole Wuhan thing. This book is just, it's insane. There's a lot of information that I wasn't even aware of. And I'm hoping that through reading it, and hopefully I can find links and stuff, I can actually get access to a lot of the information that this guy had access to. It'll help me really build this file. But the proof is out there. Canada, it's our own ignorance by allowing this liberal government to achieve full socialistic power, and now stepping into the fascist power that has the ability to hide the evils that they allow to happen behind our backs, while the rest of the world looks at what's going on in Canada. Do you really think any of these nations, do you think Japan is going to want to have any part with Canada? Knowing how they love Trump, knowing how they hate China, knowing that they know the truth of what's going on, she is doing the exact same thing that Trump is doing. She is removing the infiltrators that have been put into her country. It is called mass deportation. This is what Canada needs to do. Not the good ones, the bad ones. We need to get back to the logical immigration that we had, that people and countries around the world admired, that we've allowed this socialistic government to just crap all over. The whole Trudeau, everyone's a Canadian, isn't true. Well, look where we are. Until next time, you guys, I'm Alias to Guy. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. You've been watching the Canadian Citizen Journal. Stay informed.